Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, a multilingual dynamo, Rosaleen, a classically trained pianist, singing, songwriting producer who is here to talk not only about her latest single, Shadow, but also a crush that made her emo heart smile. Taka from One OK Rock. See, I messed it up. Rosaleen, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Kendra. It's really nice to speak to you, like officially.
I know, I do so many email interviews and reviews and everything. This is the first time I'm actually like talking to all these fabulous artists.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, I'm just gonna get started because you were born in my absolute favorite year, 1999, because then life was just easier. I was just a boy band obsessed tween, and I was like a year or so away from hearing Good Charlotte for the first time and letting my teen angst just totally take over. So like my emo pop punk bands, they're kind of like the elders compared to when you probably started getting into that scene. Because you definitely got to be a kid when All Time Low and The Maine were coming up. So what kind of bands got you into the emo scene, and were your parents weirded out at first by that music? Because I remember when emo first came around, there were legit news stories that were like, is your kid emo? Like they were scared of it. So, what about that? Like what got you into it, and were your parents kind of like, uh-oh?
Well, I got into it like around when I was like 8. I was already like listening to bands like Simple Plan, and I had a Wii video game that had like these dance routines to all these like pop punk songs, and that's how I got to know All Time Low and Good Charlotte.
8 years old? Oh my God, you were like a really hip child.
Yeah, I think it was around 8 to 10 years old. I got to know them, but I wasn't like allowed to go on YouTube too much. So that was mostly because of like what I was listening to at the time on Radio Disney and stuff like that. So that's like how I first got that filter. But yeah.
Were they playing Simple Plan on Radio Disney?
Yeah,
like
some of their songs. And I used to watch What's New Scooby-Doo, so that helped a lot.
Was emo big on the Scooby-Doo
They sang
scene?
the theme song.
You know a lot more about Simple Plan than
don't.
So was that signature emo look, the sideswiped hair, the guy liner, was that something you were like attracted to at like 8-10 years old?
Well, I started like developing a crush when I was like 13 was when definitely I was like, okay, now I'm allowed to actually like get to know those bands and actually listen to them. I was like really big into Paramore at the time.
Yeah, they are one of my favorites as well. They just get better every record.
Yeah, that's when I started listening to Linkin Park. Well, not an emo band, but they were alt new metal, so that's kind of like, the whole umbrella of alternative.
Yeah, it's just like the Hot Topic bands. Like, did they ever shoot Hot Topic? All right. Were they played at Warped Tour? Okay. So, how did you come upon Taka from One OK Rock?
I remember I was listening to like a remix of a song that Simple Plan did when they were in Japan, and I found that video, and then he was like singing. Taka was like singing a verse in Japanese, and I was like, whoa, this dude is so cool. And I thought he was so adorable with his like wavy black hair and his little guy liner.
It gets you. It got a lot of us. Were you into
yeah, I almost forgot to mention Fall Out Boy. I was huge into Fall Out Boy.
Oh my God, I could go on for hours. I was obsessed. It was like, I think they're like, that first record kind of came out right when I was about to, or maybe a little before I graduated high school. And then I believe that summer I graduated, they were playing Warped Tour, and they were the last band of the day. And I didn't drive, neither did my best friend. We had a ride there with these girls that were her friends I wasn't really a fan of, and they were ready to leave, and I was like, tell them we can't get out of the crowd, just tell, because that's like what I came for. So I was like, no, we're not leaving.
At the time, those bands really inspired me to be honest about my feelings. So like, you know, about mental health, because they were talking about things that wasn't really big in the mainstream at the time, at least not in the pop scene.
Yeah. Did you have like a favorite? Like, did you like members of those bands too, or were you like Taka number one? He has.
I liked Pete Wentz a lot.
I mean, who didn't? He's kind of like, if you count, like I will be doing an hottest like emo crush list to go along with this podcast, and he's probably he's gonna be top 5 for sure. For sure. I'm probably gonna have to go with like a Gerard Way for number 1. Spoiler. I feel like my Kim was like the top-notch emo crushes at the time.
Definitely. And then I looked up briefly what band Taka was in, and I was like, oh cool. So I looked up One OK Rock on the YouTube search engine, and then I found Clock Strikes, which I think was their most recent single at the time in 2013. And I wasn't like, obviously the song was in English and Japanese. It had English words scattered around there, but when I looked at the translation, I think that's when I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna really like this band. This is different.
So they were like an emo band, but they were over in Japan. Did that spark your interest in like other Japanese rock bands as well?
Like definitely, because I was also a really big anime nerd at the time. So there were a lot of Japanese rock bands that used to sing the openings for those animes, and that's kind of opened up my taste, because J-Rock was like, it was really cool to see Japan's millennials like put a spin on the American emo rock. Like it was their own flavor, you know, it was like their own style, very unique.
See, I know you speak Korean, but did listening to these bands, like, have you ever tried to learn Japanese as well? Well, after falling for Taka, where you're like, oh, I gotta learn Japanese, so if I meet him, I can.
Well, the funny thing is that I think at the time Taka was already pretty much fluent in English, but I did definitely learn like certain things in Japanese. What I don't know how to read is katakana, which is like one of the main writing systems that you would use to read Japanese, because I haven't like fully learned that yet, but I am in the process of learning Japanese, not just because of that, but because, you know, I want to expand my horizons, and Japan has always been one of my dream places to go.
Gotta get over that. That's another place. I don't travel much, but that is one place where I'm like, that's a place to see before you die.
Yeah,
it looks wild.
Yeah, it's in my bucket list, especially since I was into like Japanese video games like Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. So, you know, I am showing a little bit of my interest there.
Yeah, you got to get over there. I hope you do after this whole pandemic thing settles.
Yeah, I definitely want to go. It's definitely an experience.
So you'd mentioned that One OK Rock was like one of the only, or if like the only Japanese band to do Warped Tour. Did you get to go and see that at all? Did you get to see them when they played Warped Tour?
I didn't get to see them when they played Warped Tour, but I do remember they came to my city with Sleeping with Sirens. And I was like, oh my God, I really want to see them. But I didn't get to see them at that point because I was like really busy with assignments in high school, because I was 2016, I think.
So is Warped Tour something people your age feel like is one of those, dang, wish I was there type of things? Because maybe you guys were a little too young to go at the time when it was like super big, and then it ended, so...
Absolutely, because I was one of the younger kids in the scene/emo scene. I was one of the younger kids. You know, I used to wear band t-shirts, and I liked putting eyeliner on. I liked wearing chokers, skinny jeans, and high tops. I
know it well. It's how I still dress today, and I'm well into my 30s.
It's okay. I don't really think that has an age, especially since I don't really think emo had a negative influence on anyone, because it's just the music, the messages, the emotions, and the lyrical content influenced a lot of what I write about. Like in my latest single, Shadow, that I actually wrote when I was in high school and I was in that phase, because I wrote Shadow about when I first discovered that I had anxiety and depression, and I didn't tell my parents at the time because I didn't know how to describe it. It was kind of scary, but I used to listen to the alt bands like One OK Rock and like Fall Out Boy, and I was like, I relate to this.
I was gonna say, I was listening to Shadow, and you mentioned you sing about your demons, and even in your last single, Isolate, it has this very emo vibe when it comes to the lyrical content. And I know your music now leans more towards pop, but I think like you're very much like Taylor Swift and Demi Lovato, who do have a history with liking bands like Fall Out Boy, like we just mentioned, and Boys Like Girls. Do you think that's where you guys get that? You just mentioned you can tap more into your emotions because you listen to those bands.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, yeah, I definitely want to make more rock music because that's kind of like my thing. My dad grew up with bands like the Eagles, except he didn't know English at the time. He was just vibing.
It's just vibing.
Yeah. So he wasn't really too upset about the fact that I was really into scene bands. He was like, no, I get it.
He was vibing right there along with you. Like...
Yeah, he was like, yeah, this is modern day, your rock bands. This is fine. This is great. And especially as a musician, because he said that you need to be the best musician is an all-around player, singer, songwriter. They can write and sing whatever.
So you mentioned, like, of course, like you saw Talkin'. Obviously, he was like the cutest guy you'd ever seen, and almost all crushes do start out as a physical attraction. But as you've grown up, you said that the crush kind of morphed into something where you like more crush on his artistry now. So what about the way he approaches music has been influential to your creative process and your music?
He writes, I think, most of the songs for the band lyrically. So I went like Mighty Long Fall is like one of the One OK Rock songs. Mighty Long Fall, don't go, it's a mighty long fall. Yeah, that was one of the first songs they did an English version of, but I meant the Japanese version is definitely about inspiring. Because it's like a motivational anthem. Even when like you're in dark times, you can still rise again.
Mm-hmm.
And Deeper, which was one of the times where One OK Rock explored more like of a metal sound. Like definitely that Linkin Park influence is like, it was about, most of their songs were about society and being a youth and, just kind of like the turmoils that came with that. But it was unique in the way that they would talk about like topics that that definitely the international audience that grew to love that band definitely related to, and that inspired me to write about those sorts of things. I mean, obviously I write love songs too, but I really love when a band really is like 100% into their creative process.
Well, that's wonderful. It's so great to hear that an artist that was born a little later and was a little younger at that time can still be influenced by music that, touched someone like me who is like 10 years older than you. Because to me, emo music, like that scene, it felt smaller than obviously it was. But like then you see that we have these things like emo nights all over the country, and it's obvious like this music did touch many and it's still continuing. Have you ever gotten to go to one of those emo nights and have like a fun night out listening to that music?
I've been to rock concerts definitely, but I haven't been to like emo nights. Definitely after the pandemic, I'm gonna have to go because I want to relive that nostalgia.
It's really fun. And then you go, you should request One OK Rock because I don't think like I've ever heard them there, because I know for Emo Night LA, they kind of just play the same like dozen songs.
Well, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I should definitely, because they have a lot of, I think most of their music, like up until 2016, definitely took more of a pop punk approach.
It'd be nice to hear something a little different. Emo nights, if you're listening, we don't have to just hear Yellow Card's Ocean Avenue 3 times in one night.
No, yeah.
That happened once and I was so mad. I was like, they have more songs. Come on. So Now, in a perfect world where you and Taka could be together and make music forever as life partners, what do you feel your life together would look like?
Well, I definitely am inspired by the fact that he's really free when it comes to his creative process. Like he could write like the sweetest love song, but then he can also get into like serious and deeper topics. And he's also really, really silly and really funny. In an interview, I think was in Warped Tour, he described that even though One OK Rock did music that was like pop punk and close to new metal, that he had a country music personality. So he's really sweet, and I think that, you know, it would be a really, really fun dynamic. And since he's been one of my inspirations, like musically and vocally, because his vocal range is amazing. I think that we would definitely be one of those couples that writes a lot of songs together, probably duo album or something.
Would you be shocked if you heard that he was coming out with like a country record?
Kinda, but like not really, because he said that he did want to get into like more like acoustic type music in the future, since his dad did the equivalent of that in Japan.
That'd be interesting. I like country music. I like all types, but emo has a special place in my heart, always and forever.
Yes.
So now it's time to talk more about what you have going on musically, because you talked a little bit about Shadow and you dropped a couple of singles before this one. Are you working on an album, or are you going to keep riding that single train?
I'm definitely working on an album. I just want to say thank you for bringing up artists like Demi Lovato and Taylor Swift. That's like an honor, because like, you know, I grew up listening to them. Actually, they were some of my inspirations growing up on that Disney train. But yeah, I definitely want to write an album in the close future. I want to do different genres that I grew up listening to. I definitely want to approach that pop punk type of sound, especially since I see it having like a little revival, like with Mod Sun and Avril Lavigne's duet that came out, All Time Low's new single. So I definitely see that coming back. I definitely would love to write songs like that, and then maybe do like more like acoustic pop or even R&B. I really love R&B music.
I mean, have you heard that Olivia Rodrigo, Good For You? I mean, that's...
Oh, like I have it on repeat. It reminds me of Misery Business.
Somebody did a mashup of those two on YouTube.
Yes, I saw that and I was like, see, I knew it reminded me of Misery Business. Yeah.
Have you heard her new album just dropped last night?
Yeah, I think she's an amazing artist. She's very honest, and I think that the step to being a great artist is definitely being honest in your music and vulnerable. It's a very difficult thing to do, but you feel amazing once you do it, and I am extremely happy for her. I think she's going to go very, very far. I think, you know, this is not the last that you heard of her. Definitely not.
Oh no. It's just her debut and she's getting started. But you dropped your debut single back in like 2016 or so, and doing the math, you were like 17 and your next single didn't drop until like last year. Did you break to focus on school?
Yeah, I was graduating high school at that point, and I am a major in music composition, so I want to do arranging and composition in my music since I already do that. But yeah, I definitely took a break so I could focus on my studies, but I never stopped writing or recording. I just felt more comfortable. Like at that point, I'm like, okay, I am ready to drop more music and definitely go in that route. And I wanted to start out like with like salsa, because my dad is a salsa musician. I grew up with that influence, and I wanted to show that I am a jack of all trades, that I can sing different genres that I enjoy, because I don't think a musician should be limited to one style.
So did you have any reservations about releasing music last year amidst the chaos that was 2020?
Well, I wanted to make sure that everything I did was, I'm a perfectionist, so I wanted to make sure everything that I did was 100%, like, I felt good about it. I wanted it to feel good, to sound good. I wanted to make sure that I seemed like a friend to the people that were listening to my music.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see, like, you're not alone. I understand what you're going through, and we're going through this together.
So now that things are normalizing, we can kind of be together again. Are you looking forward to getting out, maybe doing some live performances this year?
I hope so. I would love to. I definitely want to sing live for people. I love performing live. I used to perform in my college band. I was part of a jazz band in college.
Oh.
I love being around people. I love, like, playing with musicians. I want to play for the audience because, that's where I feel the most alive, I think.
You're down in Florida, right?
Yes.
Are there like a lot of venues? What's the music scene like where you are?
It's since I live in a pretty diverse area, the music scene is pretty diverse. You have pop musicians, like Latin musicians, you have country musicians, rock musician, everything. It's a little bit of everything, and I that makes me really happy, and that definitely played a part in the type of music that I grew up listening to and ended up playing.
Would you ever duet or like work with your dad? Have you guys ever done that, like perform together?
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, he plays trombone. We used to do, like, duets on the piano, since I'm a pianist, and we used to play trombone piano duets together. I definitely would love if my dad played on one of my records.
Well, Dad, get on it. Come on. So, what else can we be on the lookout for from you in the coming months?
Definitely look out for some new music and EP. I think I'm gonna start out in an EP. Music videos, and more music. I'm definitely going to 100%, like, release more music more often.
Because you said you wrote Shadow back when you were in high school. Do you have like a notebook that's kind of just full of these ideas of songs that maybe weren't realized yet and needed some time to marinate?
Well, Shadow I wrote for a scholarship songwriting competition when I was 17, and I had it recorded at the time, but it was like a very, very, like, hollow demo.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like completed. And now that my voice is a lot more mature, I rewrote it to fit more what's going on, how I feel about my situation. So it's like a more mature, completed version of what I originally wrote about. And I definitely have been writing, like, a lot of stuff recently. I want to release an R&B disco inspired song because I really love, like, singers like Dua Lipa, and I grew up listening to Donna Summer and Earth, Wind and Fire, so I definitely want to play into that.
Yes, give us more like Dua Lipa.
Yeah.
That album last year that got me through that quarantine. Future nostalgia.
Yeah.
I was like, she dropped some dates, I'm buying tickets.
Yes, I love Dua Lipa. Future Nostalgia is such a great album. It's definitely happy, and that's why, I feel like releasing upbeat music during a dark time definitely helps, because you have no idea who you might touch, like, you might touch their heart. You don't know who you might reach.
Exactly, just like emo music. It helped us
Absolutely.
all. So, can you tell the people where they can find you online?
I have a website, which is rosaleenkeelis.com. My Facebook is my first name and my last name, Rosaleen Keelis, and my Instagram is rosaleen.q. And you can find me on Spotify, Amazon Music, Tidal, Apple Music, and wherever you can stream.
Well, she's everywhere, everyone. Rosaleen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about your emo crush. Everyone, you can find all of Rosaleen's information below in the description. And until next time, keep crushing it.